Good afternoon, greetings, comrades, Sanbonani, Molweni. My name is Moelela Cele. On behalf of the Forge in Braamfontein, Johannesburg, I welcome you to our second political revival. A few days ago, on 19 October, we commemorated the 44th anniversary of Black Wednesday, the day 17 organizations were banned by the apartheid state. Fittingly, therefore, the theme for political revival today is Black Wednesday, political repression in the 1970s. We organize these political revivals through music and poetry so that we can learn from our past. The political revivals are explorations of our history. We are learning and reminding ourselves how we fought and struggled in the past, because the struggle is not over. We all remember that music, poetry, theater, film, visual arts, and many forms of cultural expression all played and still play a very important role in political consciousness and the inception of political ideas, political unity, political mobilization, and activism generally. Hence, our political revival is shared through the arts. Going back to the theme of Black Wednesday and political repression in the 1970s, I will read briefly some extracts from the New Frame interview with Dr. Joe Hlolwe, who is our keynote speaker today. On 1 February 1977, Joe Hlolwe was arrested at the offices of the World newspaper in Johannesburg. He was taken to a police station in Howick, in what is now KwaZulu-Natal, and held under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act. He was jailed until the 1st of August the following year, having been kept for all this time in complete isolation, totally cut off from the outside world. He was not allowed to meet with people other than the police, and he had no access to any publications. During one of his main interrogations, a security policeman told Hlolwe he should cooperate because the world he knew had changed. The policeman told him, "Your Steve Biko is dead, your Robert Sobukwe is dead, your Union of Black Journalists does not exist. Your South African Student Organization, SASO, does not exist. Outside, it's a peaceful world." Hlolwe told him he was lying. The following day, the policeman brought Hlolwe a copy of the government Gazette, which confirmed the banning of the Black People's Convention, SASO, the Black Parents Association, the Black Women's Federation, the Union of Black Journalists, the Medupe Writers Association, and others, as well as the closing down of the World, the Weekend World newspaper, as well as the closing down of the World and the Weekend World newspaper. When he realized that the policeman was telling the truth, Hlolwe asked how Biko and Sobukwe died. The policeman laughed in response. Hlolwe learned the gory details of Biko's death and Sobukwe's passing only after he was released. He also discovered that more of his colleagues had been detained. The editor of The World, Percy Goboza, and the deputy editor, Agri Cluster, were among the many who were detained. Hlolwe was instrumental in the creation of Post-Transvaal as the successor to The World. The Writers Association of South Africa was created to replace the Union of Black Journalists, and the Azanian People's Organization was created to replace Black People's Convention. In Hlolwe's words, the oppressed had a way of responding to the oppressed. I want to express, I've come to the end of the extract that I was reading from. I want to express our appreciation to the director and filmmaker Sfiso Khanyile. There's a short, he's the director of the brilliant documentary about June 16 titled Uprise. There's a short video that will be streamed at the end of the stream later this afternoon. So that short video, which is about what I've just spoken about, was created by him. So thank you very much to Comrade Sfiso Khanyile. I also want to thank our colleagues, the good people between productions who are doing all our live streams, for their outstanding work. And may I express appreciation to our collaborators in creating the theme for this political revival, the Agri Cluster Trust and VOW FM, Voice of Vets. And thanks to my colleagues at the Forge, Yvonne, Ryan, and Justin. Our program today will be as follows. Dr. Joel Tlolwe will deliver the keynote address titled "The Oppressed Had a Way of Responding to the Oppressor." Then we'll have Mo Africa wa Mohati, who will give us poetry and musical rendition. After Mo Africa wa Mohati, we will hear the Alexandra Paris Brass Band with the Revelation Brass Band, and we will close with Nathan Chakuchichi and the Black Stars Band. They will sing and play mbira. Thank you, comrades, and enjoy.
Good afternoon, friends. Mwelela, you have taken my entire speech. Not only that, you put a video in front of us that tells the whole story. So there might be very little point in my standing here in front of you. But we will go through the motions. Now, let me tell you about the violence of apartheid. It was woven into our day-to-day lives. But in a month, this month in October, we remember Black Wednesday. It's another obscene episode of the trauma of apartheid. On Wednesday, October 19, 1977, the National Party shut down 3 publications. That's The World, The Weekend World, and an ecumenical publication called Pro Veritate. They arrested the editor of The World, Percy Goboza, as you have seen. They arrested his assistant, Agri Cluster, and scores of other black leaders. And they banned 18 organizations, most of them black consciousness organizations. Now let me tell you something. Just look around you. Black is beautiful. It's a color that helps bring out all the other colors. Just look around you. So I don't think it's appropriate that we call this day Black Wednesday. It was a horror Wednesday. That's the day when the white government further tightened the gag on black thought. So for me, it's horror Wednesday we are remembering. Now, October 2021 brought us a few things. On October 9, we relaunched Agri-Cluster's nation-building program philosophy. We did it right here at the Forge. And this month, Horror Wednesday was remembered by 16 organizations and institutions under the one theme, nation-building conversations amongst each other. That's the theme that was adopted by these 16 institutions. These 16 include the Steve Biko Foundation, the Agri-Cluster Trust, the South African National Editors Forum, Wits Journalism, DMS Incorporated, or DM5 Incorporated, the Sowetan newspaper. Sowetan newspaper is the direct descendant of the World. The University of Johannesburg, Solplaatje University in the Northern Cape, the Freedom of Expression Institute, the Cape Town Press Club, the National Press Club, the Human Rights Commission, the Institute for the Advancement of Journalism, the Forge, our host today, the University of South Africa, and Media Monitoring Africa. Now you can see the range of organizations and the roles they play in our society. Now getting back to my subject, the violence of October 19, 1977 was the climax of events that started with the rebellion started by the youngsters of Soweto on June 16, 1976. This was the climax. It followed the arrest of Steve Biko and his subsequent murder by they've got beautiful names, security police. What irony. Steve Biko was killed on the 12th of September, 1977. And the unrest, the resistance that had started in 1976 just continued after his death, Steve Biko's death. And then the noises from around the world condemning the South African government followed. But you would think that somebody who gets so much criticism and faces so much violence would react rationally. Not the National Party government. They jumped into their lager. You heard the minister yourselves on tape. They jumped behind their lager. They were petulant. They shut their ears and eyes and pretended life in the country was good for all law-abiding people. Now, I know Mwelela has already taken this part of my speech, but allow me to talk a little about the world. Percy Koboza was appointed editor in 1975, but he was then awarded the Nieman Fellowship at Harvard University in the United States. While he was in the States, he came under the influence of Baptist preachers like Martin Luther King, like Reverend Louis Sullivan. And this was at a time when black consciousness was burgeoning in the United States. Percy landed at O.R. Tambo, at the time it was called John Smuts, on the 16th of June, when Soweto was already burning. But he was so angry at the things that were happening in his country. And this anger reflected in his subsequent steering of the newspaper with his editorials that asked hard questions. The tone of the publication reflected the mood in the black townships at the time. The world was embedded amongst its readers. Percy took the world at a time when it was a rag with sports, crime, and the social scene as the main items. But Percy put his stamp on the publication. He took sports and took them to the place where they belonged, back of the paper. He reduced the coverage of crime and covered the politics that his readers wanted to read about. Now, at the time, the world was owned by the Argus Company. They've now evolved to become independent newspapers. But at the time, it was a white-owned company. But Percy spoke to them and said they should remove the editorial director, a white person who was placed there to oversee the operations, editorial operations at the World. And they agreed and they removed this editorial director. The paper reflected black lives. I remember a meeting years later after Horror Wednesday. The lawyers descended from Sour Street, that's our head office, and they came to us in Industria. And they told us an interesting story. They said, chaps, we have come here to warn you that this publication, we're now running a publication called Post Transvaal. We've come to warn you that this publication is likely to be banned. Before the World was banned, we had a feeling that you were going to get banned because of your tone. But we couldn't tell you because we thought you would interpret it as interference in the editorial affairs of the newspaper. But now we feel obliged to warn you that the tone of the paper now is moving in the same direction, and you are likely to get banned again. Now, I'm sure you can guess the rest of the story. The Argus stopped publishing Post-Transvaal in 1980. This was after we were on a long strike, a journalist strike. And after we had reached a settlement with our bosses, and we were due to go back to work the following Monday, our bosses, the Argus, were called to Pretoria and told, don't publish Post-Transvaal. Any issue you publish will be banned in exactly the same way as the world was banned. And that was the end of Post-Transvaal. Now, let me tell you, again, I am intruding into what Moelela has already spoken about. At the time of Horror Wednesday, I was out of commission. I was already locked up under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act. I was locked up on the 1st of March. You said the 1st of February. It was the 1st of March, 1977. And it was exactly a month after I had rejoined the world. I'd been in and out of the world, but I had just rejoined them. Now, Section 6 of the Terrorism Act allows the police to detain you, to hold you in solitary confinement until you answer their questions satisfactorily. Now, this was a cover for torture, even murder. Steve Biko was held under Section 6 of the Terrorism Act. So I know the insides of our dungeons. I know what it means to be politically conscious and to lay one's life on the line. But let me press the fast forward button. The anger in the townships grew and grew. In the 1980s, it had reached its peak with necklace killings, with drivers of commercial vehicles being stopped, pulled out, and their vehicles torched. Community centers, schools were destroyed. Now, into this revolutionary chaos, Agri Cluster, who was then the editor of the Sowetan, tossed his big idea of nation building. 33 years ago, he wrote. He called it the Nation Building Manifesto. It said, nation building means picking up the pieces and rebuilding all structures that have collapsed in our communities. It means striving for the best in all that we do for ourselves and our people. It is a search for the acquisition and control of structures of power required for the survival of a nation. It is creating an efficient leadership and increasing the value and quality of life among all inhabitants of our country. We have a vision of a future society we want to create for ourselves and our children. Nation building is our hope for the future. These words are very apt for where we are today, especially that we are going to vote between now and Monday. When we talk about reviving politics, we talk about re-examining our values. The culture of greed that has grabbed our country is the new enemy. When we revive politics, it means we revive our relationship with ourselves, with our neighbors, in our communities, in our nation. And these can only be fixed when our values have been fixed. When we strive for the best in all that we do for ourselves and our people. When we acquire and control the structures of power. Now, the worst irony of our lives is the fact that in 1994, we thought the levers of power had been handed over to the oppressed. But look at where the oppressed are in the pile of priorities in our nation. We need to look at our values to be able to revive our politics. Thank you.
Very much, Dr. Jotlolwe. Thank you, Baba. Siyabonga. I just have no words to express appreciation. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Baba. What you are saying is exactly what we are trying to do with this political revival program. We are trying to say, let's remember where we come from. Let's remember our struggle. Let's try to learn from our past and see how we can fix the current problems. Thank you very much, Baba. I just want to also mention what I should have said at the beginning. Ubabu Jotlolwe is a veteran journalist. He is the former press ombudsman, and he's a struggle stalwart in his own right. Back in the 50s, he was mentored by the great Ken Temba, whom we all know was part of the drum generation, working with Onet Nagasa and many others. So Dr. Jotlole was mentored by him. So our next item on the program, we're about to have our sister, Mo Africa wa Mokhati. Mo Africa will be performing poetry and singing for us. I'm just going to read briefly a bio of Mo Africa. Mo Africa is a musician, producer, poet, author, curator, cultural activist, and award-winning radio presenter from Mamelodi, South Africa. She's the co-founder of an NGO called Hear My Voice. Her career in the arts began in 1999. She launched her poetry collection titled My Tongue is a Rainbow in Washington as part of the Azania to DC Poetry Tour and Cultural Exchange. The collection explores race, equality, inequality, women and children abuse, and marginalized languages. Some of her works have been featured on local radio stations like SAFM, KFM, Ubuntu Radio, and Channel Africa, as well as TV shows including Trends and The Morning Show. Thank you very much and welcome, Mo Africa.
Heritena kama furiria itibisha runaway. Heritena kama furiria itibisha runaway. Heritena kama furiria itibisha garetobela kiria locha. Heritena kama furiria itibisha runaway. Tobela kiria locha. Heritena kama furiwe. Gare tobela kiria locha. Ke nna Moafrika wa Mokgathi a Magwiti a Moseti a Maswela. A tlhaba ngwanaka ke dia seale e kgalemetše ya roa ya topagatodi ya maoro. Ba re ke la rangwa la botšhiba. Ke nna Moafrika. My hair texture and my skin color is attached to it. I say, look at my physical build alone, it speaks volumes about it. Bobotse biaka bupepenkisha bobotse bia mosadi wa Moafrika. Mantshunyana ngwana tlalona la gona tha ka re ke nna Moafrika ke a ikgantsha. Brothers and sisters, you will pardon my emotions, but I can feel it down my bloodstreams. That, oh yes, ke Moafrika. From the time being black was less humanity. From the time being black was just a figure of speech. Ka re le ge ba fela ba sa nkwe. Ba kwa di le di tšatša ka re ke mopedi ke a ikgantsha. Nna setlogolo sa ngwako wa go ja dinonyana ditlho a fa bašimanyana. Kgaetšedi a masogana le makgarebe sephološa dikwata. Nna setlogolo sa modiba mmalefokana go thwana marao maolo. setlogolo sa ga ba Masekela ba sekela ba etswa Rhodesia ba re ke ba nyam nyokololo ba o nya ba sa fetše ba re felesetšang mopao ga yo nya fela ga eja ga felesetšwe ga ke rogane ke mothepe moa Bakwena ba ila letlhaka ba roka ba metse a pula ba re moAforika re o kwele o ikana tau o ikana kwena o nyaka eng ka dikobong ka re pelo e thupilwe ke lebetse ka kiba ya gešo ke bontšha bakgekolo dithogolo ka re pelo e thupilwe se ngumvubu ngumakhasane ngumgasela silo samanzi leleme lona le re ke sa le mopedi thui Thobela. So when we enter homesteads, we introduce ourselves. It is important that when you address the masses, they know who you are. And I've just done that. It is important, you know, as we are reflecting back, and thank you so much for reminding us of how values are important in our society. And we have made it, you know, a custom just to pass by things and not to introspect things. So my set today is divided into 3 parts, and I speak of those. Black people, there was a time where they had to change their names to fall within the status quo. So I'm proud that when I stand here, I bring my ancestors with me. I bring the entourage with me on stage to raise them wherever they may be, you know, just to say we are here and we can own spaces. We can express ourselves in spaces. And the second piece that I'll be sharing, it's called Plantation. It's a medley, and We Need You. That's the 2 titles that I'll be sharing. And I don't usually speak before I recite the pieces, but I just want to finish with the talking, then go into the poetry. As Black people, way back into time, we were not even allowed to know how to read and write. And coming to the generation, Yabontate, it was a very huge accomplishment for Black people. But let us just, as we are moving forward, never to forget that Black people were not even allowed to read nor write. So this medley pieces speak about that. I'm going to touch on the now. Babu Kele was saying that nothing has changed really, and I'll be sharing a Marikana piece on that. And it is important that as we are writing our history, we understand which language we are using. And I'll be wrapping up my set with English, not English, English. We are children of the sun, children of the moonlight, transcending through the light, transcending through the dark. And no slave master gonna find us. We have been here before. 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 We are children of the sun, children of the moonlight. We are of the cosmos. We have been here before. 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 and no slave master gonna find us. We have been here before. We have been here before. We have been here before. I say, ain't no slave master gonna find us. You were denied to many, a hidden talent that led many to the hang pole, a pillar of laws cemented in ink, 26 bricks of feathers, architects hanging from left to right, and an intangible desire transferred like birds to its hatchlings, yet so intimidating. Your power stops wars. Your position propels those who have met you. You are fire in winter and oasis in a desert. A precaution known by those 5 women. Oil our light to us. We need you. Missionaries have told us about you. Siyayinyofa, sifuna imali. Siyayinyofa, sifuna imali wena. Bullets are tamed ghosts. 21st century stokoloshis. Muratawi Dirisha used to silence those who demand more. 12,000 kuphela mulungu wami. 4,000 rand yena akapheli nyanga. Mina funa mali usapho lwami lulambile mlungu. Work the belly of the mother and never eat belly button full from her riches. Injustices of history are felt like iron piercing flesh in this country. Sweat, it's a buy one, get 500 for free. Siyayinyofa, sifuna imali. 34 men in blue massacred. A man in a green blanket, in a green blanket matriarch with them. Children rendered fatherless. Wives turned widows. Windows of hope shut when they shifted the blame. Tokoloshis are still hovering, ready to tame again. Siyayinyofa, sifuna imali. Sifuna imali. Siyayinyofa, sifuna imali. Sifuna imali. Sifuna imali. My brother skinned his tongue to taste English better. Hand rolled the pink leather to erase his uncivilized mother tongue. Tongue twisting without papalias, bland, bitter, and barbaric. But is our mother's tongues inches shorter to live longer, dying out from code switching, code mixing, and code forgetting? Is it too great to be tasted by 15 generations after us? Etiquette lurking for the 21st century. But how thick our tongues to choke as they sleep ampere? How we have derailed our mother's tongue. My brother peeled it all off. He desired small English. 11 a.m. tea with scones. Its antithesis too confusing. Assonances a reminder of foreign missionaries in our homeland. Nostrils too open for its accent. The jargon too heavy for his lungs. Vocabulary too early. His language is dying. He wants more and more and more. My brother's tongue is no longer growing back. And what a mission to restitution. Our mother is gone. In vicious circles, her children without a home. Generations lost their lineage to her roots. She has left. Packed her syllables, neatly folded her idioms, gathered her proverbs in a donkey cart. She is gone. She took the longer route, leaving deeper footprints, hoping we will soon follow. She liked her language saturated. Mother says delusions are delusional to our tongues. Her last words were an X on a page she used the night winter had arrived. She was spellbound by smoke, ink kissing fire. She liked how it sparked. She was wise even though she could not read. Mother loved twinkling things. She could not have read this poem in remembrance of her lost children. Her children are still waiting. Her children are still waiting. And I am last of 54. Muleta ngwedi, kimuleta li sweet sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. Mule tangwedi. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. Mule tangwedi. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. Bana batara. Mule tangwedi. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. My brother's tongue is no longer growing back. And what a mission to restitution. Kimule darling, sweet, sweet. Kimule darling, sweet, 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 sweet. Tobe.
Thank you for very beautiful music, and thank you also for very powerful poetry. When I opened at the beginning, I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. I said we all remember that music, poetry, theater, film, visual arts, and many forms of cultural expression all played and still play a very important role in political consciousness and the inception of political ideas, political unity, political mobilization, and activism in general. Hence, our political revival is shared through the arts. So, thank you very much for this poetry session. Siyabonga kakhulu. Our next act is Nathan Chakuchichi and the Black Stars Band. The plan was to have the brass band, but our comrades were performing. The brass band are delayed somewhere, so we're going to have Nathan now, and then later we'll have the brass band. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming. It's good to be here. My name is Nathan Chakuchichi. With me is Reynold, and I've got Marshall who's going to join us later. We are from Zimbabwe. The instrument that we are playing is called mbira. This is our traditional instrument, the instrument that we use in celebration, in all occasions, and as well invoking the spirits in Zimbabwe. This wonderful good day, though I was born in 1976 on the 12th of February, I was too young to talk about it, but due to the National Archives, Heroes Acre Gallery, the books, I've learned to read about our history as African countries, Zimbabwe, South Africa, Zambia, Mozambique. And Ntate Joe, what he was talking about, I've read about it, and I remember my mother telling me about the June 16. Though I was young, she told me that a lot of children in the community and in Zimbabwe, they cried a lot during that week before the June 16 happened here in South Africa. So the spiritual connection between Africa is still the same and is still going on. And that's why we are here to revive what happened in South Africa as well in Zimbabwe. Is the same. Africa is one. We love you, South Africa. We will be with you all the way. And thank you for embracing us as Zimbabweans during our hard times. We thank you so much. Keep embracing us. We need to lean on you during these hard times, but we know it's going to be okay. It's going to be fine one day. So our first song is called The One I Love. It pains leaving home. The most painful thing is leaving home. I'm here in South Africa, my children are in Zimbabwe, my family in Zimbabwe, but there's nothing I can do. I have to come for greener pastures. But thank you, South Africa, for embracing us. Thank you so much. I know that it pains, I know living on. Oh yes, I have to go. Don't they cry, Zimbabwe. One day you will overcome. There is nothing I can do. Oh yes, I have to go very far, far from you. Zimbabwe. One day you will overcome. Don't cry, Zimbabwe. One day you will overcome. Oh yes, I have to go very far, far from you. laugh, neighbors. You never know what things fall apart. Don't they laugh, neighbor. You never know what things fall apart. South Africa, Botswana land, Swaziland, Namibia, Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi. Don't they laugh, neighbors. You never know what things fall apart. Birds of the same feather flock together. Oh yes, I want to lean on you. Oh yes, I want to lean on you. Oh yes, I have to go to the one I love. Oh yes, one I love, to the one I love. Oh yes, I have to go. There is nothing I can do. Oh yes, I have to go very far, far from you. Oh yes, I have to go. Don't they cry, Zimbabwe. One day you will overcome. South Africa, Botswana land, Swaziland, Namibia, Mozambique, Zambia, Malawi. Oh yes, I have to go very far, far from you. Don't they cry, Zimbabwe. One day you will overcome. Oh yes, I have to go. South Africa, Botswana land. One day we will overcome. Oh, 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 oh. Don't they laugh, neighbor. One day you will overcome. Oh, 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 Zimbabwe. Oh, 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 oh. mdiwa ndakuenda ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa wangwe usachema chema mdiwa ndakuenda ndozokona ndadzoka kwandiri kuenda tora rudo rwangu ochengetewe ndozokona ndadzoka iwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka kaukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka ka ndozokona ndadzoka ka bia mdiwa wangwe osachema chema mdiwa ndakuenda ndozokona ndadzoka mskanongwa sipoka adzimbondibata hope pia uri kure aningamborororume mskanongwa sipoka adzimbondibata hope iwe uri kureka kwandiri kuenda mudi tora rudo rwangu ochengetewe ndozokona ndadzoka kwandiri kuenda mudi tora rudo rwangu ochengetewe ndozokona ndadzoka iwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka kaukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka aningamborororume mskanongwa sipoka adzimbondibata hope iwe uri kure aningamborororume mskanongwa sipoka adzimbondibata hope pia uri kureka kona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka kaukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka ka ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka kaukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka mdiwa ukona ndadzoka ndozokona ndadzoka aningamborororume mskanongwa sipo aningamborororume mskanongwa sipo adzimbondibata hope pia uri kure aningamborororume mskanongwa sipoka adzimbondibata hope iya uri kureka Thank you. Our next song is called Dande. Dande is a secret place in Zimbabwe. Hear me correct. A secret place in Zimbabwe, a place where all traditional ceremonies are happening, a place with people who are still believing in their past. In Dande, it rains, they reap, they grow. People in Dande are very organic. That's where a place people are still living with wild animals, uncontrolled animals living with people. It's a very secret place. Should you require anything, go to Dande. It's the only place with ancestors who are still telling the truth by now. Should you require anything, please go to Dande.
Vari mudande vanovhaira Vari mudande vanovhaira Ndenda mudande Ndenda kudande Ndenda kudande Vari mudande vanovzezewe Nyama musango vakomana Nyama musango vakomana Kairiko kuda Vari mudande vanovhaira Zimwino nakomana Zimwino nakomana Kairiko kuda Vari mudande vanovzezewe Nyama musango vakomana Nyama musango vakomana Kairiko kuda Vari mudande vanovhaira Zimwino nakomana Zimwino nakomana Kairiko kuda Vari mudande vanovhaira Nyama musango vakomana Nyama musango iriko kuda Vari mudande vanovhaira Twenda mudande Twenda mudande Twenda mudande Vari mudande vanovzezewe Mzimwino nakomana Mzimwino nakomana Kairiko kuda Vari mudande vanovzezewe Nyama musango komana Nyama musango iriko kuda Vari mudande vanovzezewe Daizavasipo, daizaka Pira wakanganisa, daizakainda Daizavasipo, daizaka Pira wakanganisa, daizakainda Daizavasipo, daizakafa vaira
Zimwino na komana, zimwino na komana ka iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango komana ka nyama mzango komana iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Miti noraba komana ka miti noraba komana ka iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Zimwino na komana ka zimwino na komana iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Yere komana ka yere komana ziriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango komana ka nyama mzango iwe iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Miti noraba komana ka miti noraba komana ka iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Zimwino na komana zimwino na komana iriko kudande.
vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango komana ka nyama mzango komana iriko kudande.
vari mudande vanovhaira
Zimwino na komana ka zimwino na iwe iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango komana ka nyama mzango iwe iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Dwinda mdande, dwinda mdande, dwinda
vari
mdande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Inde kudande, dwinda mdande, dwinda mdande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango kumanaka, nyama mzango kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Zimwinona kumanaka, mzimwinona kumana, iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango kumanaka, nyama mzango kumana, iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Miti noraba kumanaka, miti noraba kumana, iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango kumanaka, nyama mzango kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Zimwinona kumanaka, mzimwinona kumanaka, iriko
vari
kudande.
mudande vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango kumanaka, nyama mzango kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe
Zimwinona kumanaka, mzimwinona kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vane zvese iwe
Nyama mzango kumanaka, nyama mzango iwe iriko kudande.
ndakarerwa ndoenda kudande musango vari mudande
Zezewe mzimwinona kumana, mzimwinona kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane zvese iwe vari mudande vane zvese iwe vari mudande
Vanovhaira mzimwinona kumana, mzimwinona kumanaka, iriko kudande.
vari mudande vane vhaira
nyama mzango kumanaka nyama mzango kumanaka yiko kudande
Mudande vane zvisaiwe.
dzimwinona kumanaka mdzimwinona kumanaka iriko
Vari
kudande
mudande vane zvisaiwe.
nyama mzango kumanaka nyama mzango kumanaka iriko kudande
Mudande vane zvisaiwe.
dzimwinona kumanaka mdzimwinona kumanaka iriko kudande
Vari mudande vane zvisaiwe.
nyama msango kumanaka nyama msango kumanaka iriko kudande
Vari mudande vanovhaira.
dzimwinona kumanaka mdzimwinona kumanaka iriko kudande
Vari mudande vane zvisaiwe.
nyama msango kumanaka nyama msango kumanaka iriko
Vari
kudande
mudande vane zvisaiwe.
nyama msango kumanaka nyama msango kumanaka iriko kudande
Mudande vane zvisaiwe.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next song is called Chamtengure. This is the song that has been used during the liberation struggle of Zimbabwe. Our music that we play is called Chimurenga music. But in music, it's the voice of people. But Chimurenga itself is the liberation struggle of the Zimbabwe Liberation War. So when it's in music, it's the voice of people. So musicians, poeters, all kinds of art, we are the voice of the people. We must speak on behalf of the people. So, thank you. Ndakayenda paruzevha ndokuona mbuya, ndakayenda paruzevha ndokuona mbuya, vachikanga mandire, vachikanga mandire, vaikanga mandire, vachikanga mandire.
Ikanga mandire.
Ndakayenda paruzevha ndokuona mbuya, ndakayenda paruzevha kwakuona mbuya, vachikanga mandire we, kanga mandire, vaibanda mandire, vachibanda mandire, vairarira mandire, vachirarira mandire. Dzoka koma kumusha kwaipa swika onewe kumusha kwaipa dzoka koma iwe kumusha kwaipa swika onewe kumusha kwaipa kwaipa kumusha awere kwaipa kumusha dzoka koma iwe kumusha kwaipa swika onewe kumusha kwaipa kwaipa kumusha awere kwaipa kumusha kwaipa kumusha dzoka mkoma kumusha kwaipa swika onewe kumusha kwaipa kwaipa kumusha awere kwaipa kumusha kwaipa kumusha kwaipa eoka mkoma iwe kumusha kwaipa kaswika onewe kumusha kwaipa kwaipa kumusha awere kwaipa kumusha. we chamtengure chachamutengure vhirire ngoro baba awandita mukokere wandoneko baba echamtengure we chamtengure chamtengure we chamtengure wandita mukokere wandoneko baba ndaona mabhuku azere dova baba amukadzi muchaire ashaye dovi baba wandita mukokere wandoneko baba chamtengure we chamtengure chamtengure we chamtengure wandita mukokere wandoneko baba ndaona mabhuku azere dova baba amukadzi muchaire ashaye dovi baba wandita mukokere wandoneko baba
muchairi famba nepasi
chamtengure
wanditi mukokeri kwira mungoro
chamtengure
wanditi kuchaira wandionei
chamtengure
ngureka
chamtengure
ona chamtengureka
chamtengure
ngureka
chamtengure
chamutengure vhirire ngoro
chamtengure
chamutengure baba iwe moyo
chamtengure Thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is our traditional instruments. So if you are a Zimbabwean and you can't join this when people are playing, you are not a Zimbabwean. This is our traditional. Our guests have just joined us with the moves that we have learned. This instrument has been handed to us but from generation to generation from our ancestors. But there's one thing that I would like to talk about, the mbira. Mbira is an African instrument. It's all over in Africa. The Khoisans, they vigorously stand to claim to have invented mbira. The Zimbabweans also, Shona people, they also stand vigorously to have invented mbira. So if you can go and search, or if you can tell me if you know who invented mbira, we don't know. But for now, we credit the Zimbabweans for making mbira, playing it, and making it famous to the world. Thank you. This is one of the songs from our new album called Mambo Wangu. Kazuwa igwenyambira tatumwawo kwamuri muri kudiwa kwatinobva kwaitabira kumusha. Kazuwa igwenyambira tatumwawo kwamuri muri kudiwa kwatinobva kwaitabira kumusha. Ukuzviyo nechibage zvose kwanzi ndezvenyu vatiti kutambidzeye kwaitabira kumusha. Ukuzviyo nechibage zvose kwanzi ndezvenyu vatiti kutambidzeye kwaitabira kumusha. Wasvika gwenyambira bazari razotanga vana vese vaungana paita bira pamusha wasvika gwenyambira bazari razotanga vana vese vaungana paita bira pamusha uku zviyo rechibage zvose kwanzi ndezvenyu vatiti kutambidzei kwaita bira kumusha wasvika gwenyambira bazari razotanga vana vese vaungana paita bira pamusha asvika gwenyambira bazari razotanga vana vese vaungana kwaita bira pamusha uku zviyo rechibage zvose kwanzi ndezvenyu vatiti kutambidzei kwaita bira kumusha zoti kwamambakwedza mzimu wababa wasvika mzimu wababa ukabvunza akuru vepano varipi zoti kwamambakwedza mzimu wababa wasvika mzimu wababa ukabvunza akuru vepano varipi soko mukanya muripiko avangadaire sekuru vangwa gudowe avangadaire soko mukanya muripiko avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire museyamwa muripiko avangadaire amoyo muripiko avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire avangadaire soko mukanya muripiko avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire amoyo muripiko avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire soko mukanya muripiko avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire amoyo muripiko avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire amoyo muripiko avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire avangadaire nzousa manyangawe avangadaire amoyo muripiko avangadaire dewachiko avangadaire mukanya manziko avangadaire Thank you. Okay. We've been given more time by the program director. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. As we will continue until we're waiting for the other band to come. Hope they'll be here soon. Thank you. Makare kare aye aye makare kare komana iwe. Ndakabvunza ndokuzwa ini makare kare aye aye rere
makare kare
aye aye rere. Vadzimu vako vanozviziva, ndisekuru vako vakakuparira.
makare kare
Iwe usati waberekwa,
makare kare
ndisekuru vako vakakuparira.
makare kare
Iwe uchiri mudiki,
makare kare
ndakati ndabvunza ndokuzwa ini. Aripo pauri makomborero, vadzimu vako vanozviziva.
makare kare
Aye aye pamakagova wakashaya dzakazara dzimwe hadzina ndiro baba dzevarombo nedzevapfumi tofa nenzara vamwe chimbika pamakago vamwe vakashaya dzimwe dzakazara dzimwe hadzina ndiro baba dzevarombo nedzevapfumi. Thank you. This song is called Makarikari. Makarikari means long back when in our culture people they plow, they harvest, they take a tenth of their harvest to the king, and the king will keep it. When disaster comes, he will give back to the community. But people of these days, people have got millions and millions. I've never seen one such a millionaire who said, I'm giving back to the community. So why the past is not coming to rescue the future? That's why we are singing this song. Say the past must come to rescue the future. People must give. What's the reason of having too many, the big number in your own pocket, where there is people out there starving? Africa, let's go back to our beginning. Africa, let's go back to our usual way of living, of looking after one another. Yes, modern life has come. It's fine. We like it. We need it. But does that give us authority to abandon our culture, to abandon our system of looking after one another? Thank you.
Wakandidorera chimhandara changu oye chimhandara che wakatora chimhandara changu changamire mumera mumera yo baba iwe boyo chimhandara changu wakatora chimhandara changu wakatora
Chimhandara changu,
wakatora
chimhandara changu,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu,
wakatora
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakatora
chimhandara changu,
wakatora chimhandara changu wakatora
chimhandara changu. Chimhandara changu,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakatora
chimhandara changu,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakatora wakatora
chimhandara changu,
wakatora
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakatora
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe,
wakatora
chimhandara changu,
wakanditorera
chimhandara changu iwe. That was too quick. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. We thank you so much. The project director is saying it's good for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Nathan, to Raymond, to Marshall, Victoria, and Future. Thank you very much, comrades. Thank you for very beautiful music. Thank you. We appreciate. There's a saying that my maternal grandmother used to say way back when I was still very young. Whenever she was appreciating or expressing appreciation, when she was expressing appreciation, she will say, "Uwanda wali womthakathi." Loosely translated, it means only a wicked heart hates success or beauty. So, thank you very much, comrades. Thank you. Unfortunately, our comrades, the Alexandra Paris Brass Band and Revelation Brass Band, it looks like they might not make it in time. They might not be here in time for their performance. They are delayed in another program. So for now, as I mentioned earlier when I was making opening comments, that there is a video of Ubaba Upesi Qoboza, which talks about which is connected to the theme that we are talking about today, the theme of Black Wednesday and political repression in the 1970s. So in that video, he talks about that. It's a video that was created for us by the director of Uprise, a very beautiful documentary about, a beautiful, painful and brilliant documentary about the June 16 uprising. It was directed by Sfiso Khanyile. So there is a short video clip of about 13 minutes that we will be playing at the end of this stream. But before we go to that, I'm going to call up or invite the executive director of the Agri-Cluster Trust to come and say a few words for about 3 minutes. We are collaborating with the Agri-Cluster Trust in creating today's program. In fact, the theme for today, which is Black Wednesday, we created the theme together. We came up with the theme for this program together with the Agri-Cluster Trust. So it is very important that we have Jerome Cluster here just to say a few words. But before I also call Jerome, I just want to express appreciation again to Ubabu Joe Hlolwe, Dr. Joe Hlolwe, who gave us, who delivered the keynote address today, a brilliant keynote address which contextualized the theme of today's event, the theme of Black Wednesday and political repression. We will try to have his speech on also on our website. Yes, people can. This live stream will remain on our YouTube channel, but also on our Forge website, we'll try to have his speech so that those who prefer to read it can read it. It is very important because it's educating us about the past, about where we come from, and it's very important that we know where we come from. Unfortunately, most people are trying to forget about the past. They are trying to ignore history. It's important that we learn from history. So Ubabujo, Dr. Joe Tlole, taught us history today. He educated us. He gave us political education, and political education is needed today. Political education is relevant and is important today. So I want to thank Ubabujo, and I want to thank our sister Omo Africa Wamohati for her poetry and rendition of musical rendition. Thank you very much, sis. Thank you for reminding us that even during the time of the Black Consciousness era, even during the time when our elders and comrades were in exile, the art, music, poetry was always an instrument, you know. And Comrade Nathan said that artists, they are the voice of the people, and that is very true. So artists are the voice of the people. So hence, our political revivals, and this is our second political revival, will always be through music and poetry. Maybe it can be through music and theater, through music and visual arts, but there will always be music and the other arts. So thank you, comrades. And also, as I said earlier, I'm thanking our comrades, the good people between productions who are responsible for this live stream. We collaborate with these comrades in all our live streams. Thank you very much, comrades, for the brilliant work, you know. So I thank you all. I also want to thank you all, all of you who are here today, and thank also Umam Tlole, and thank everyone who's here today with us. Thank Mrs. Klaste, who's accompanying Comrade Jerome Klaste. Thank all of you for taking your time and joining us today. We appreciate. And I also want to thank the people who are watching and those who will be watching in future. Thank you very much. Thank you. So.
Thank you so much, Ntate Mwalela. Dumelang Sanbonani. Hello, everybody. I hope everyone is well. There was a fantastic performance that we've just heard, quite inspiring as well. My name is Jerome Klaste, and I come from the Agri Klaste Trust. I'm the executive director of the Agri Klaste Trust, and the Agri Klaste Trust is named after my father, Ntate Agri Klaste, who was a famous journalist, an editor, and also a community builder. So he's famous for his nation-building philosophy he founded in 1988 when he became editor of the Sowetan newspaper. Of course, that was a very difficult time in our history in the late 80s. I'm fortunate to have Ntate Joe Tlole as not only a father figure to me, but also as a trustee, the chairman of our board of trustees at the Agri Klaste Trust. And it is always a pleasure and a privilege to be around him, to listen to him. And Limme Tlole, it is always wonderful to see you, Mewaka. Thank you so much, Mme. And thank you so much, OC Yvonne. I know that these events are a collaboration with you, Ntate Mwalela, and your team. It is always fantastic to be with you. On the 9th of October, we were here celebrating and also launching our trust, the Agri Klaste Trust, but also relaunching my father's nation-building philosophy. Now, you may ask why I'm speaking about my father. Today's event, Political Revival, touches on Black Wednesday and the oppression that our people went through in the 1970s. Ntate Klaste is one of those journalists who were also arrested on Black Wednesday, the 19th of October, 1977. In fact, 7 a.m. in the morning, it was a Wednesday morning, a cold morning, when the security police came to my father's home in Meadowlands, Soweto. He was alone home with his mother when the police came, descended on the home, small home in Meadowlands, like a ton of bricks, rattling doors and windows, looking for my father as if he was a criminal or a mastermind of some sort. And his only crime, of course, was that he thought differently from those in power at the time. Before, I used to think that they were arrested because they were journalists doing their jobs. Yes, that's true. But I've since learned from Tate Tlholo with our many discussions that that was not only the case. They were a huge problem. They were a huge headache, a thorn in the side of the apartheid government because they thought differently, because they had the audacity to think that they had the right to speak their minds. They had the right to be treated with respect and dignity. And of course, the Black consciousness movement was also a big problem for the apartheid government at the time, with their slogan, Black man you're on your own, with their slogan, Black is beautiful. Of course, we know at the time the apartheid government was trying to tell us different. So when Tate spoke about Makarikari, you know, it brought back these thoughts that I've been having through reading my father's articles and columns to understand what it was like back then. And it actually speaks to exactly what he was talking about when he says that the past must rescue the present, it must rescue the future. And fortunately for me, I'm able to read my father's columns and see what the past is about and see how we can revisit ideas like nation building in order to tackle problems we are facing today. And of course, I'm fortunate again to have Tate Tlholo in my corner, you know, who is assisting and guiding us on our journey as well. And so I didn't mean to speak too long, but I must mention that this event also forms part of the Nation Building Conversations with Each Other, which is a series of commemorative events that celebrate Black Wednesday, the 19th of October 1977. And we had put together 14 organizations in the media and also in the Black consciousness community to make sure that we have these important discussions, dialogues, events, book launches that reflect on the day, Black Wednesday, what it means. And so we are really grateful, and Tate Molela and your team, Mayor Yvonne, and of course all the technical experts for this wonderful opportunity. And so in closing, I'd like to perhaps see if we can also have the audience participate in something we do at the Trust. Part of our work is reading to kids. We love children. And we read to kids in the ECD centers, early childhood development centers. And this is one of the exercises I do with the kids before we read. So please repeat after me. You won't let me down, right? Okay. I am. Because we are. Maybe a little louder. I am. Because we are. Umuntu. Ngumuntu. Ngabantu. Please look at each other as you say it. Umuntu. Ngumuntu. Ngabantu. Motho. Kimotho. Kabatha. I'll close it there. Thank you so much.
Welcome to the City Club Forum. I'm Kenneth Kovach, Vice President of the City Club. South Africa, today and tomorrow, is the topic of our forum. Our speaker is the distinguished editor of the Johannesburg Post, Percy Qoboza. Mr. Qoboza is now serving as editor-in-residence of the Washington Star. He has written for newspapers and journals all over the world, including the London Times, the New York Times, and the Washington Post. Mr. Qoboza's journalistic career began in 1963 as a cub reporter with The World in Johannesburg. In 1974, after successive promotions, he was named editor of The World. The World, though, was banned by the government of South Africa in 1977, and Mr. Qoboza was imprisoned for almost 6 months. Upon his release, he assumed editorship of The Post, a daily newspaper published for blacks. In effect, it is a replacement for the banned World. The Post is the largest and the most important black daily in South Africa, and with a daily circulation in excess of 130,000 copies, it is one of the largest dailies in the country. According to recent news stories, President Reagan still talks about a continued friendship with South Africa, but has come to place greater emphasis on the need for a better understanding with the emerging African states. The City Club welcomes this opportunity to hear from journalist Percy Kubota about his South Africa. Mr. Kubota.
There had been a problem affecting the students who were feeling very, very angry about a certain government directive that ordered them to study certain subjects in Afrikaans. And Afrikaans is the language of the ruling party, the government party, and they felt this was really pushing down government ideology down their throats. Now, the problem started long before I left for Harvard, and when I came back, it really was still there because the government was adamant that they wouldn't do a thing about it. And that Monday, I began to hear very hair-raising stories about the level of the anger. And the Tuesday, I took a plane into Cape Town where Parliament was meeting. I spoke with a minister responsible for the directive, responsible for black education. And I said to him, look, the position is getting out of hand and dangerous. And you've got to respond quite positively. I'm not even saying to you that you must withdraw your directive. I'm saying to you, suspend it until you can have time to talk to black teachers who were also angry about the directive and talk to the parents who were also becoming angry about the directive. And the man's response to me was, if we pay for your people's education, then surely we have got the right to decide what and how they are taught. And in desperation that afternoon, I went to the Prime Minister through the influence and contacts of liberal members of the South African Parliament. They forced him to listen to my plea. And after listening to me, he said to me, well, if there is trouble there, then I'm terribly sorry to hear about it, but I must assure you that law and order will be maintained at all costs. And within 7 days, Soweto blew up. Unrest around the country that left in their aftermath more than 700 people who were killed by police bullets. And we were going through a very traumatic, tense period. And at the forefront of the problem was the fact that most of the newspapers and television crews, foreign correspondents couldn't get into the black ghettos where the trouble was brewing because, first of all, the reporters and the television crews were white. And whites were kept out of there because for their own safety. But they couldn't keep us out of there because we were part of that community. I had to sleep somewhere, and Soweto is my home. And so that the international community began to see what was happening there through our own reporters and through our own reports in the newspaper. And we tried to be as objective and as truthful as we could. And it was to our advantage that we maintained those high standards of integrity. The government did not like it. Some sections of the South African population did not like it. And in September, they wiped out 7 of my colleagues who were on duty in a riot situation. They were arrested, reporters and photographers, and they were kept in jail, some of them for 2 months, some of them for 3 months, some of them for a year, some of them for 2 years, without charges against them, without any specific reasons given for their incarceration. And we did the best we can with the ones that were remaining. And one after another, we began to vanish from the face of the earth. My turn came for the first time on the 14th of December, 1976. At 2 o'clock in the morning, I was taken from my house taken to security police headquarters, kept standing there for 11 hours while they interrogated me about the whereabouts of a student leader. And I said to them, listen, go and ask his mother where he is. They said his mother doesn't know. I said, well, if his mother doesn't know, how am I expected to know? They said, well, you run interviews and stories in your paper about him. I said, that's the difference. I don't know where to find him. He knows where to find us. And for 11 hours, I was kept standing there to answer that idiotic sort of question. And after massive protests, a lot of them coming from the US, I was released. That was the end of 76. The problem continued in 77, however, on a very mild form, and it seemed to have been working itself out. Until in September the 15th, when Steve Biko, the Black Consciousness leader, was killed in prison. Then the black community was outraged again. 4 days later, on the 19th of September, my house was bombed by men or people unknown. My children, my twin girls, who were at that time only about 6 years old, barely escaped serious injury and possible death because the bomb exploded just in a room outside where they were sleeping. And exactly a month later, at 2 o'clock in the morning, I was phoned in my house to tell me that the Minister of Justice has banned the World and Weekend World, and that therefore, as editor, I had a responsibility of waking up even as they were speaking to me and go and get the copies we have printed already at 2 a.m. and make sure that they don't appear in the streets, because that would be a violation of the Internal Security Act under which they were banned. I said to the police officer who carried these good tidings that with all the good intentions under the sun, there is no way I am going to have to retrieve 176 copies of the newspaper that started going all over the country at 7 o'clock the night before with very fast vans. So even if you give me the helicopters, I would not be able to do it, and I do not have the helicopter. And the fastest thing I have in my house at the moment was a bicycle, and I have no intentions of doing it on my bike. And I immediately went to the office, and we spent with about 7-8 lawyers who were looking into the ramifications of the banning of the papers and trying to find out if the government's directive can be challenged in court. And of course, as you know, 9 lawyers gave us 9 different versions of the only thing they were unanimous about was that we had no leg to stand on. And after drinking gallons and gallons of coffee, and of course, daybreak came, reporters began to come in, reports began filtering in that so-and-so has been detained, so-and-so has been detained, and by 10 o'clock in the morning, it was quite clear that most of the black leadership all over the country had been wiped out from the face of the earth and taken to jail in a well-orchestrated raid. And at 11 o'clock, the international media was beginning to descend on the world to come and find out what happened, how it was banned, and the local media began. And at 12:30, they came for me. They simply said, "Let's go." I said, "Where to?" They said, "To jail." I said, "No, I'm not going to jail." They said, "Yes, you are." And they produced a warrant which was signed by the minister saying that I am being incarcerated under Section 10 of the Internal Security Act. Now, this law does not accuse you of any specific crime. It doesn't say you're a criminal. It simply says, if in his opinion, the Minister of Justice has got cause to believe that your physical presence in any community is not conducive to the maintenance of law and order, he may, at his discretion, remove you from that community and that area and keep you in a place of safe custody until such time that he's satisfied the position has gone back to normal. No judge, no court, no archbishop, and the Holy Father himself would intervene in that area. You're gone and nobody can do anything about it. And that's what's happened to me. Those are the circumstances. I still don't know why they did it. They are not saying.
Mr. Kruger, the steps which you have now just taken are being described as drastic, and it is being said that such drastic steps were not necessary. What is your reaction to this?
Now, my reaction to that is that the steps were certainly necessary, because it's clear to us that since the riots broke out in this country last year, and they flared up every now and then sporadically, those riots were not spontaneous at all. The grievances that initially were stated have now been changed. New grievances have come up, new objectives have been stated, new processes are being devised, and almost from day to day, there's a change in tactics to keep the prevailing unrest going, and so that there can be a confrontation between black and white. Now, a relatively small group of activists are taking part in this thing, but they are using a lot of puppets, and they have managed now to intimidate a lot of ordinary people, particularly our black people. And this is an impossible situation. We cannot allow this to continue. The whole social setup of our black population is being disrupted by this continual confrontation between black and white. Houses are being burnt, children are not going to school, children are not obeying their parents anymore. There's a continual agitation and a confrontation with the police. There's a continual police action in the townships. And this is a most unhealthy state of affairs. We cannot allow this to carry on without doing our very best